Hi there, I'm Austin Al,
And I'm Morgan Ramsay.
and today we're going to be introducing the prisoner's execution scenario, which is a moral dilemma.
So what we'll be doing is we'll take the moral relevant factors from the scenario, and there'll be a choice that you have to make. And we'll be using two different moral principles called DDE, or Doctrine of Double Effect, and Philippa Foot's Principle of Harm. What we'll do is those moral principles will determine the moral status or permissibility of the action from the prisoner's execution scenario. So, what is the prisoner's execution scenario? The scenario is, you and your son are prisoners at a concentration camp. Earlier, your son has tried to escape, but unfortunately was captured by the guards and sentenced to be executed. To prove a point and to discourage other prisoners from trying the same thing, the guards tell you that you must execute your son by pushing a button that will cause your son's death. They threaten that if you refuse to do this, they will kill your son themselves and they will kill an additional 5 other prisoners.
So there are two outcomes of the prisoner's execution scenario. Either one, you kill your son by pushing the button, and the other 5 prisoners do not die, and that results in one person being dead. Or 2, you do nothing, and the guards still kill your son, plus the 5 other innocent prisoners as well, which results in 6 people being dead.
So, is it morally permissible to kill your own son in order to save the other 5 prisoners? That's what we will find out.
Using the Doctrine of Double Effect and Philippa Foot's Principle of Harm. So, our first moral principle, the Doctrine of Double Effect, also known as the DDE, states that it is sometimes permissible to bring about by oblique intention what one may not directly intend.
So the doctrine of double effect is talking about when one single action has 2 outcomes. And those outcomes are what you directly intend and what is obliquely intended. For example, pushing this button will produce a mushroom, which is my intended effect, as well as setting off this TNT, which is my unintended effect.
So, the Doctrine of Double Effect needs to make a clear distinction between direct intentions, or as my colleague stated, unforeseen intentions, also known as oblique intentions. So, a direct intention in our prisoner execution scenario is pressing the button to save the 5 lives of the innocent prisoners. That is what is directly intended by pushing the button.
So basically, the direct intention is what you intended to happen, and the oblique intention is what was unintended. So in the prisoner scenario, by way of pushing the button, your son is going to die, and that is by way of how the guards have rigged it, and that is unintended. We do not want this to happen, but it is going to happen regardless.
To recap, a direct intention for the scenario is pushing the button to save the lives of the 5 prisoners, while the oblique intention is killing your son because the guards have rigged the button to kill your son in the process.
So basically, the DDE is stating that an act may be permissible if the harm that is caused from the act is unforeseen, right? It is not intended. The harm cannot be directly intended.
So, applying the DDE to our prisoner's execution scenario, the harm of killing your son, since it is obliquely intended, makes the action of pushing the button permissible, according to the Doctrine of Double Effect. Since the harm of killing your son is not directly intended and merely obliquely intended, the DDE states that the prisoner's execution scenario and the action of pushing the button to kill your son is permissible.
Our second moral principle is Foote's principle of harm. Unlike the DDE, where your intentions are what makes an act permissible or impermissible, Foote is concerned with whether you are causing harm or merely allowing harm to happen.
So Foote uses two key concepts in her theory, positive and negative duty. Positive duty is the duty to act in a certain way, such as providing aid. Negative duty, on the other hand, is the duty to refrain from acting in a certain way, such as causing harm. I just want to make it clear that, according to Foote, negative duty always trumps positive duty.
So Foote lays out 3 different scenarios with 3 different principles that apply in each one. So the first 2 don't apply to the prisoner's execution scenario, but I'll go over them anyway. So the first one is when you cannot avoid causing harm. So, in that scenario, you must minimize the harm that is caused. That is to do the least amount of harm possible. In a scenario where you can provide aid in 2 or more ways, then you must maximize the aid. So that is, you must do the most good that you can. The third scenario is when you can provide aid by causing harm. So looking at the prisoner's execution scenario, we are providing the aid to the 5 prisoners by keeping them alive, by causing harm to our son. We are harming our son.
Even though the father is being coerced by the guards into the action of harming his son, the father is still considered to be the one causing the harm, not the guards. By harming his son, the father is violating his negative duty to not harm another person. This is why the father must take no action in this scenario and allow the guards to cause the harm themselves, even though the other 5 prisoners will die in the process.
So in this scenario where there is a conflict between negative duty and positive duty, as my colleague said earlier, negative duty always supersedes positive duty, meaning that it is impermissible to provide aid by causing harm to something else.
In other words, Foote's principle states one cannot cause harm to prevent harm. So, according to Foote's principle, like my colleague just stated, pressing the button in the prisoner's execution scenario is morally impermissible because negative duty trumps positive duty. One cannot cause harm to prevent harm.
Even though we would be saving more lives overall by pushing the button, therefore killing our son and letting the other 5 prisoners live, according to Foote, it is impermissible to do that since we are actively causing harm ourselves. So as we have seen, different moral principles, such as DDE and Foote's principle of harm, change the moral status of an action. So depending on the principle you use, it determines the moral status. According to the DDE, pushing the button is permissible. According to Foote, pushing the button is impermissible. What's important about a moral principle is that it matches with our intuitions. So, in this scenario, while obviously very difficult to do, our intuitions say that it would be permissible to push the button and kill your son in order to save the other 5 prisoners, since if you don't do that, the guards are going to kill your son anyway, as well as the other 5 prisoners.
However, even though we say it is permissible, I still believe that it would be very difficult to push a button to harm your son, because nobody would like to harm a family member that is close to them.
Yeah, of course. Like, we can at least agree that it is permissible and you won't be held morally accountable for doing it. But again, I don't think that everyone would be able to go through with this action.
In the prisoner's execution scenario, the DDE works as a better moral principle because it more closely aligns to our intuitions about the permissibility of the action of pushing the button in the prisoner's execution scenario.
However, Philosophy is an ongoing conversation. The DDE is not perfect and cannot be used for every scenario. Different philosophers are constantly trying to tweak and modify their moral principles so that it better aligns with our intuitions.
Thanks for watching.
Bye! One. Action!
The light's reflecting off my glasses. You see that?
That's fine. You can take them off.
Then I can't
Alright, that's my test. Well, the water's not going to be part of the thing.
ASMR.
Wait, what are we doing next? Minecraft footage? Do you think Mete even knows what Minecraft is?
Minecraft.
Why are we using Minecraft footage?
I don't know.
Okay. This is the good take.
So Foot uses two...
That's okay. In a scenario where you can provide aid in two different ways, you must maximize harm. While these are great, they do not apply to the prisoner's scenario.
Maximize aid. You said maximize harm.
Did I say maximize harm? By causing the harm to our son. We're causing the harm to our son. I don't know why I repeated myself.
According to Foot, it is morally permissible to press the button. Oh wait, no, it's morally impermissible. That's a blooper. That's a blooper. Okay. So.
None of this will be in the video.
Shut up.